Welcome back to chapter number 7, where we want to talk about recording an animation and recording keyframes. So we are in animate mode, so open the Tools tab, and here you found the deck. You can separate the deck if you click and drag with the left mouse button the deck outside from the Motion Studio window, or you can put it back. If you close it, then it switches back. So with dragged out you get a better view. You can here select your bones, and here you got your record and playback functions. So to record a keyframe there are two ways. The first way is you go with the mouse over a keyframe and press the right mouse button and say record at frame, and Motion Studio sets a keyframe. Or you go to the specific keyframe with a double click here or with the keys here and press here this record button. Always use this record button if you want to record keyframes for the bones in the skeleton. Just only if you want to record a keyframe for the complete skeleton, then you have to choose the skeleton here, and then you can record this with TrueSpace himself, but just for the complete skeleton. In all other ways, use this record button to record the positions, rotations and so on for the bones in the skeleton. If you have more than one skeleton here, Motion Studio always records all bones for all skeletons. You can here with this little red icon say I don't want to set keyframes for this skeleton. So let's say you have subskeletons for hands and facial expressions and so on. You can switch all these skeletons off and just switch the skeleton on for a main character so that you record keyframes just for this skeleton. Deleting keyframes is also easy. Click it with the right mouse button and say erase, or you can mark the keyframes that you want and click here in the menu on erase, and they are deleted. So let's say we have two new keyframes here and we want to copy that. It's also possible. We can mark these keyframes, click on the copy button, choose a new point and say paste, and Motion Studio copy the keyframes for us. Also we can erase this again. So let's say I want to copy that keyframe from 9 to 20. I click on copy and I want to copy that from here, 15 over frame 20 forward to frame 29, and if I now click paste, it's not possible. And the reason for that is Motion Studio has no clipboard inside, so it is not possible to overwrite the same frames that you want to copy. This is not possible. So you have to first go to behind your selected keyframes, click on paste, and then mark these again, click copy. Here you can go to 15, say paste, and now you can insert these keyframes, and after that you can delete the old ones. So this could be one way. The other buttons here, mark, register, paste, register, are to create a movement. Let's say you have a walk cycle on the position, then you can copy all the keyframes, set a marker, and with paste register, Motion Studio can automatically calculate an offset to your animation to create a forward animation. But this is for another tutorial. The buttons here are known from any other media player or something like that. Play, skip to the first, skip to the last frame, and so on. Here, this is these three buttons here are toggle buttons. Here you can set repeat if I press play, toggle between the frames, and this one here plays the selected range. It's also easy. You say which frames you want to see, mark these, press play, and Motion Studio plays the selected range. Here you can set the playback speed from 10 up to 60 or on a maximum speed, or you can also type in a value. And let's say you have chosen 60 frames per second and your computer is not fast enough to play back this animation in this speed. You can here toggle the frame skipping button on, and Motion Studio is able to skip a few frames to get this frame rate. So the other buttons here are to refresh if needed, and here you can, for a better overview, collapse the unkeyed frames so that you only see where is a keyframe and where not. So let's do one thing. Let's go to frame number 10 and let's move the body a bit forward here, and let's set a keyframe here at frame number 10, and we set the same keyframe at frame number 20. And if I now go to frame 10 and I move the the animation here a bit, you can see the feed is sliding a bit forward and backwards. So why this? We have set the same keyframe. Well, let's open the scene editor, and we say in the option that we want to show just animated objects. Open the skeleton, the bone back, and you see that we now have here joint 9 is selected. This is the joint here, and let's go into the curve, and we see there is a spline curve here, and this spline curve is represents our positions for the recorded keyframes, and green here is the x-axis, and as you can see, the spline here is a curved spline. If I go into the properties of one from these keyframes, I could also say here, this is a curved frame, or I can say this could be a sharp one. And if I choose a sharp keyframe here instead of a curved, and I now play the keys here from the frames here from 10 to 20, you can see now our joint stands still. And normally that is what we want, and not the sliding. We call this feed sliding, and this is terrible for an animator if you get feed sliding. So we could now go on in our animation from keyframe to keyframe, and in the scene editor we say for all keyframes that we want a sharp one. But this is terrible to do that, so it's better to do to record keyframes with sharp curves. So how can we do that? This is also possible in Motion Studio. Before you start your animation, go to the default keyframe or default position and say to all the joints where you need a sharp recorded curve that you want a sharp curve. So you can do that for all the joints where you need it. You can here click on the sharp button, and if you now record any keyframe, Motion Studio automatically creates sharp curved keyframes. The last thing I want to show is for the last button here, floor. If I drag this joint here up and down, you can see the feet can go under the ground. So to easier animate your character, you can say, okay, this position that you have is the floor, and if I now drag a joint up and down, he cannot go under this position. The position has nothing to do with the floor himself. I can also do this for this joint here and say this position that you now have is your floor, is your ground position, and Motion Studio prevents us that this joint can go under this position. So that's all for this chapter, and go forward for the next one.